everybody. Let me turn off that light. All right, so here we go. Q and A number 137. Let me bring this down here so it doesn't look like I'm looking up. Okay. All right. So, hello, Javier. Javier says, hello, Eddie. Nice to see you. I hope you are doing fine. Greetings to everybody. Howdy, howdy. I have some questions. What is the inconvenience of having different rim size mouthpieces? So not everybody has a problem with that. I think for the people who don't have problems, what we're looking for is consistency. Look at my hair. Oh my. We're looking for consistency. You know, if you're having problems on the horn, it kind of helps to take some of the variables out. And now, if there are stories of people that can play wonderfully on every mouthpiece, that's fine. And we should all strive to get to where we're that good and that flexible. However, most of us are still struggling to accomplish more. We're not happy with where we are. And I think having different rim sizes creates variables that we don't need. That said, you know, people, yeah, on the one hand, I think it's better to have the, you know what I mean? It's better to have the same mouthpiece size across, but it's not like a hard, fast rule, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay. Javier also asked, can I do the tonalization in 1 or 2 breaths? Yes, you can. I normally do the whole thing in 1 breath. So, hello, Gabriel. Nice to see you. Gabriel says, hello, Eddie and friends. Gary is here. Hello, Gary. Now, Javier is asking, I pivot the trumpet upstream when I go high notes, having more mouthpiece pressure in my upper lip. Is that okay? You know, when it comes to pivot, so I think the most important thing when it comes to pivot is to acknowledge that there's a pivot. That's the most important thing. You acknowledge that the pivot's there. And then what I like to do is hold the horn in a way that accommodates my physical needs, right? So if I get the notes better like this, if I get the notes better like that, then I want the horn to accommodate that. Okay? So that's my big thing on the pivot is that we want to if we're doing the routine on a regular basis, you're doing the scales up and down, you're doing the lip slurs, you're doing the long tones, and if you hold your horn in that way that accommodates the angle, then I sound like I'm distracted because there's a text message. I should not have my phone in front of me. Sorry about that. Yeah, if you hold your horn in a way that accommodates the angle of your head, and by the way, that's where I think the shifting should happen is in your head. So when you go for this position, it's like this. When you go to the lower position, it's like that. Okay. That's how I see it. Is you want to hold it in that position uh, comfortably so that the instrument adjusts to your head position. Hello, Karen. Nice to see you. She says, "Hi, Eddie. I see you have a WhatsApp group now." Yes, we've got a WhatsApp group, and let me talk about that real quick. I have on the website now, and I'll put the page so you can just click on it. I have on the Q and A page a QR code that you can scan with your phone. All right. So that's the page. If you want the link directly, it's in the comments of this video. Oh, it doesn't let me go down there. Oh. But it's also on that you can either scan that QR code. Let me copy the link. Or you can click on it if it's your phone. There's the WhatsApp link that you can click on with your phone to get onto the WhatsApp group. And the point of this group is to let people know when we're going to have a Q&A and when we're not going to have a Q&A. All right? So that's set up now. Oh, by the way, I'm going to apologize to you guys last week. I told you there would be a Q&A last week, and we ended up not having a Q&A last week because I got a last-minute call, and it wasn't a gig. If you guys have seen the videos with me and Ricky Diaz. Ricky Diaz is a band leader I used to work with, and he's obviously older now. And I want to say this in the nicest way possible. His mental faculties are not 100%. Let's just put it that way. And his daughter set up a jam session and asked me to be part of it there at his house. And if you're on Facebook, you can go to my Facebook page, Eddie Lewis Trumpet, and a few down from the top is this video that one of the girls made, one of the daughters made of us playing Una Mañana, and that will give you an idea of what I was doing instead of the Q&A. But you know, when stuff like that comes up, I don't want to make it sound like it's a charity. It's more of a thing of respect, right? This guy was a band leader that I used to work with. He had a big band and he also had a small group. The daughters used to sing with the group. And it's a very important part of my history, my past. And so when they ask me to do something, I don't want to be ungrateful. So yes, I did cancel the Q&A last week so that I could be part of that. I hope you guys understand that. All right. So Javier says, yeah, head movement pivots the trumpet. I don't do it any other way or something like that. Okay. Gary says, how do you go about composing and arranging music for trumpet? Do you start with pencil and paper or use Finale Sibelius to compose right off the bat? Let me show you. I have this here, and this is not all of it, but this is the current stack. My compositions almost always, there are some exceptions, but almost always start off as what I call inspirations. And this is a stack of those inspirations. I'll pull one out. and show to you. All right. So this is what it looks like. So this is the inspiration. So what is an inspiration? In my world, an inspiration is you're going about your day. You're getting work done. Maybe you're driving around, getting chores done or whatever, and an idea pops into your head. I stop and I write that idea down. It's not something that my cat is now climbing into the drawer. It's raining here and she's all wet. Let me show you guys. This is Dory. Say hi, Dory. Meow. All right. Oh, yeah, she's making a mess. Okay. Yeah, so I write this stuff down not to be written or composed in that moment, but so that later, when I do sit down to write a composition, this is the thematic material that I'll use in the composition. So the Iron Eagle March was a idea that came to me January 30th of this year. I'll often put what I was doing when the inspiration hit me. This says Iron Eagle March. Now that's odd, right? I don't normally have a title. Most of these will not have a title, but it says Iron Eagle March, inspiration, then the date, and then before morning shower. So right before I was about to go into the shower, this melody hit me. I can't play at that angle. Sorry about that. And what I'll do normally is I'll take that, I'll type it out into Finale, and start to develop it. I might not always stick, now that I've played that on my horn, I probably wouldn't stick to that. When I write them down, I'm not checking the pitches, and some of that did not sound quite right. So I would fix that because it's my idea, right? Nobody's gonna know that that wasn't the original thing that I wrote down. But then I go to the Finale stuff from there. But I'll start with that. The way I teach composition, and I do teach composition lessons, by the way. The way I teach composition is that the overall concept for composition is that we start with a seed, and you grow the piece from that seed. So in this case, that melody that I heard in my head right before I went into the shower, that composition, I'm stuttering today. I apologize for that. That melody would be the seed that I grow the piece from. So I'll put it into Finale, and usually with a piece like that, what I would normally come up with first is the accompaniment. What do I want the accompaniment to sound like on that piece for that melody that I've got? Once I have the accompaniment, I will from there go start adding before, start adding after, and start developing. But all of it comes out of that first inspiration. So that's how I do that. But the very first inspiration is almost always written down in pencil. Then I switch it over to the Finale stuff. Gabriel, hello, Gabriel. Did I already say hello? Yes, I already did. Sorry. He says, Eddie, you say the exercises in your book shouldn't be played musically. Can you please explain this better? What I mean when I say that is that we should not add phrasing, we should not add vibrato, because those things change the air, and we want the air to be completely straight. So when we're doing like the tonalization studies, right? We want the air to be 100% steady throughout the exercise. We don't want it, we don't want this. We don't want that. We want it to be the same all the way through. And that's what I mean by not musical. No phrasing, no vibrato, anything that will change the air, we want to avoid that. And by the way, I do believe that the skill that it takes to play a better phrase is enhanced by being able to make the air straight. I believe that the skill that it takes to make it straight is the same skill, physically speaking, that it takes to make the air uh, in a good phrase. And that's something I talk about in the Physical Trumpet Pyramid book. Javier says, yeah, friends and family comes first. I hope he is doing fine. Yeah, yeah, it was a good get together. Afterwards we had tamales and arroz con pollo. So it was nice. We had a good time. And he had a good time. Karen says, would you demonstrate a lip buzz exercise from the chops player or apprentice routine? Okay, let me open that up. So I'll do the player one. Let me scan to the book. All right, here we go. Oh, I just figured out why. Well, I won't tell you guys that. Okay. So I think today is going to be a rough day for me. All right, here we go. Ah, sorry. I've been practicing a lot today, so my lips are a little bit beat up. That's exercise number 1 in the Trumpet Chops player book. Here's number 2. So that's how that works. I'll skip the 4 and do one more. That's number 4 in the Trumpet Chops player book. I hope that was a good demonstration for what you're looking for. Gary says the cat is inspiration for your next tune. Hey, you know what? My wife does all the artwork, right? And I told her you need to start looking at some ideas for a cat piece because I want to do it. We have 4 cats and one that wants to be one of ours. Um, there she is again. Um, I'm gonna call it Cat Suite, and it's gonna be like the fishing suites. I don't know if you guys know. I have a suite of suites. There's the catch suite. No, I'm doing it in the wrong order. The bait suite, the tackle suite, and the catch suite. And I want to do something sort of like that, but with the 4 different cats that we have. So yeah, that's on the works. Dory the jazz cat. I call her Dory because she's gray. So Dorian Gray is an old story about this photo, and for as long as the photo ages, the person doesn't age. Maybe you guys have heard of that story before, but I call her Dory, short for Dorian, and yeah, she knows I'm talking about her. Gary says, "Thanks, Eddie. Makes sense. I really like your explanation. I like the doing it by hand, more creative with the eraser." Hello, Adrian. Hey, Eddie, what is your #1 tip to improve at improv, specifically the B flat blues for TJEA? You know what my #1 tip is that the rules are just there to educate you. When you improv, the objective is not to follow any kind of rules. The objective is to be creative. And you'll know when you're doing it right when you like what comes out. Now, I don't mean like every aspect of it. That's not what I'm talking about. As trumpet players, we never get to where we like our playing. We don't walk off stage going, "Oh yeah, I'm hot tonight." Um, that's extremely rare for us, right? So I'm talking specifically about the ideas that you play. Uh, I can tell you this: I don't like people who play scales as improv. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. I don't mean that I don't like the people. I don't like it when people play skills for improv. I don't like it when they play exercises. And if the way you're learning how to improv is a bunch of exercises or a scale, that is not so hot. So what I would do to implement what I'm talking about here, find some blues, B flat blues music that you like, that with someone, some, it doesn't have to be trumpet, some artist that you like the way they play that song. And transcribe, you don't have to transcribe the whole solo. Transcribe the parts that you like and memorize those parts. It doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying play that in your solo. I'm saying learn it, forget it. Find another one, learn it, forget it. Find another one, learn it, forget it. And then when you improvise on that song, don't try to play the chords. Play the stuff that's like the stuff that you heard that you like. I hope that makes sense. Play the stuff that sounds like the stuff that you transcribe. Now, if what you transcribe happens to come out, that's all right too. That's entirely different from, however, transcribing something and then trying to fit it into your solo. That's not the same thing. We don't do that. That's a disaster when that happens. It comes to what the originating thoughts are. If your originating thought is, "Hey, I learned these licks, let me put them in the solo," that's a disaster. But if you learn a bunch, let's say for the sake of this audition, let's say you learned 50 of them, 50 licks that are between 1 and 2 or 3 measures long. You learned 50 of them, you learned them by memory. And by the way, one of the ways you can learn them is to put the track on and play them over and over and over the track. Transcribe it, transcribe 2 or 3 measures, play that over the track over and over again. Don't worry about the chords where it happens, right? Just play the part that you like. Sometimes it'll fit, sometimes it won't fit. Your mind will remember that. So keep memorizing more and more of those things that were played over B flat blues by some artist that you like. Then when you do the actual improv for the competition, play the stuff that sounds like the stuff that you transcribed. That's my biggest tip. And it's just the one tip, right? But there's an explanation. The one tip is you got to play stuff that you like. Don't follow the rules. Play stuff that you like. And so this other explanation was my step-by-step process. How do you do that? I hope that makes sense. All right. Where are we? Oh, yes. Okay. Karen, thanks. I have a way to go. That's the nice thing about the trumpet is that it is a journey. I had a pastor one time say, "This is not a journey. This is not a journey," right? But you know what? It is a journey. I understand what he was trying to say, but the whole thing about all of life is a journey. He was talking about that in the context of things that we're doing wrong and using it's a journey for as an excuse to not straighten up your life. And I understand what he's saying there, but the truth is those things don't fix themselves overnight a lot of times, and it is a journey. So that's how I see trumpet is we're constantly heading in that direction. Gabriel says, "Eddie, what should I do if I miss a note during exercises? Redo from start or from the note I missed?" Okay, this comes to one of the most important concepts I teach for teaching people how to practice. We do not stop when we make a mistake. This is how I explain this, all right? When we practice, proper practice, you always have in your mind, where am I going to start? Where am I going to end? When we miss a note, it happens somewhere in between those two ends. We should never stop because we missed a note. When you start here and you take it and then you stop at the end. It should always be that way. Always. I call this committing to the follow through. When we start, we do not stop the music. Let's be clear about this. We do not stop the music. We do stop the procedure. Now, if it's just one note that you've missed, I don't think it should be quote unquote redone. We repeat these things 10 times anyway. So if you're not doing a practice system that repeats 10 times, then you're not doing the best that you could do in your practice. Everything that you do, there are some exceptions with the higher level stuff, but when you're learning a piece, you should be practicing that stuff 10 times. Every step should be 10 times. I've been getting more belligerent about that. I guess belligerent's too harsh of a word insistent. I've been getting more insistent on that because I've seen the benefits of actually doing 10 times. Now okay, so now the exception for the 10 times thing is if the music is too easy. But we wouldn't be talking about this in this context if the music was too easy. So there are songs that I've learned in the last few months that I only repeated 3 or 4 times, but that was because the music was not worth spending my time doing. It was let's say I had a church gig and I wanted to go through all the music. The music was not hard enough for me to spend hours on it. So in that case, I would shrink the 10 repetitions down to 3 or 4 repetitions. But when you're learning a serious piece, you should actually repeat everything 10 times. Let me give you an evidence that I actually do this. These are turnarounds that it's eventually going to be a turnaround book. And I do these 10 times each. See my slash marks? Now, I wrote these exercises. The ones that are X'd out are the ones that when I actually sat down to write, to practice them, they sounded horrible. So I'm not going to keep those in the book. But here I am. And look at some of them. Some of them have actually 20 repetitions because I do them up an octave too. You see where it says 8 VA and then 10 more repetitions. So I'm doing these turnarounds 10 times in each octave. And all practice techniques should incorporate 10 times repetition. So if we're doing 10 times and you miss one note, and you didn't miss it the previous time, you didn't miss it the time before that, but right now you cracked a note or whatever, we don't have to take that into account because cracked notes happen anyway. If it's the same cracked note every single time, then you stop the procedure. Now, what do I mean by stop the procedure? We're talking about the 10 times, right? If you find that 2-3 times in a row, you're cracking the same note, you want to stop the 10 times thing. Put that on hold, put it over here, put it on the back burner, and fix that cracked note. The way we would normally fix a single note in my studio, if you have one note you keep missing over and over again, we do work outwards from that note, one note at a time. So let's say, trying to give an example, well, no, I can't do that. So yes, I'll just have to trust that you guys understand what I'm saying. We start with just that note, then we add a note before it, and we add a note after it, then another note before it, another note after it, another note before it, another note after it. And each one of those, by the way, is 10 times. Every time we add another note, there's another 10 times. And you do that until you have maybe 2 measures. Then you go back to what you were doing. That should fix the note that's a problem. So you can summarize what I'm saying here is that when you have problems, you don't stop the music. You stop the procedure. If you're working backwards, stop working backwards and fix that note. If you're doing the quick change technique for practicing, stop the quick change technique and fix that note. But this idea that oh, I've committed a crime against the trumpet gods, I need to stop and fix this. You don't stop the music. Finish what you were doing. There are two reasons for this follow through concept. Two reasons. One is that you're going to have to be able to do that on stage anyway. And that's the one reason that most people already understand. When you're on stage and you miss a note, you got to keep going. So that's the most obvious reason. But there's also this, what I call mental momentum. Mental momentum, if you always stop when you make a mistake, the mental momentum is gone. It's sort of like surfing, right? When you're on that wave, you can do all kinds of stuff. When you keep stopping when you practice, it takes the momentum away and you can't do the stuff that when the mental energies are just flowing, all of our skills go out the window. So we don't stop in the middle of the music. That's one of the most important things that I teach my students about the practice process when we're doing. Well, it even applies, by the way, that same concept of follow through also applies to the routines. You make yourself finish it up no matter how bad it is. A lot of times we miss the one note and it sets us off. And because we missed that one note, we miss a whole bunch of other stuff towards the end. Make yourself keep going, and that stuff will start to not happen anymore. I hope that I answered that question. Javier says, in the lip slur exercises, to get it right, you have to change the note only by changing lip tension, but the air has to be equal through the whole thing. Right. You got the right idea. It's a little inaccurate. It's not just the lips that change. It's also the jaw position, the pivot, the tongue position, right? We want to have, for the higher notes, we want the tongue higher in the mouth, lower notes lower in the mouth. So it's not just lips. Other than that, you got it right. Gary says, the community orchestra I was in ended up not working because my vibrato and B-flat horn just did not fit with them. The director never gave up saying, no vibrato to me. Is it okay I walked away? You know, I don't have a problem with that. If How do I feel about that? You know, okay, let me be, if you were my student and you came to me with that story, the first thing I would want to know is, can you turn the vibrato off, or are you just playing the vibrato because you have no control? That's the first thing I would ask. And to me, it doesn't matter if you're in the orchestra or not. This would be a problem I would want to address with you. If you can't turn it off, then that's a skill that we want to look at, the ability to stop playing with vibrato. Like I said, it wouldn't affect whether I think you should be in the orchestra or not. Now, if you can control it, but that's how you think it should go, then that's a stylistic difference. And I have no problem with leaving an orchestra because you have stylistic differences. Of course, the exception is if you're doing this for a living, right? That changes some stuff. If you're doing it for a living, then you need to do what the conductor says. And I do think that's a legitimate difference. We do want to treat these situations differently if we are professional. Gabriel says, what if I crack the first note? Do I go on? Yes, absolutely, you go on. Because a lot of times when you crack the first note, it's because of that mental momentum that I'm talking about. There's something that changes in your playing when you know deep down in your subconscious that no matter what happens, this show is going on the road. There's something that changes about the way you play. I remember one time I had a concert in El Paso, and it was a very emotional concert for me because I had gone through some stuff, and I had reached a revelation in my fight against nerves, and I thought, you know what, this concert's going to be different. You know, the way things used to be, if I cared more about the people in the audience, it would make me more nervous. And so on that concert, I had finally gotten past that, and I cracked my very first note. I was featured, by the way. I wasn't just playing in a band. I was being featured with a big band in a concert. I think I played 2 or 3 songs, my songs, tunes that I wrote, and I cracked the very first note of the first song, and I just had to laugh inside because I had declared this concert is different. And here I am. Oh, and by the way, I remember too that I had 2 different colors of socks on. So all my imperfections laid bare in front of this group of people who I'd known since high school, including my parents as well, which obviously I knew longer than that. Um, and yes, you just keep going. If you crack the first note, that's not a big deal. And I actually did what I used to think was blasphemy. I actually laughed when it happened. I thought, this is so ironic. Uh, so, yep. Javier says, is there a trumpet player that I can listen to that plays mostly in the lower register on the trumpet? You know, that's what people say about Chet Baker, but it's just not true. Chet Baker is all over the horn. You might be able to find some solos that he played where he didn't play in the upper register, but so no, I can't think of anybody offhand. Now there is a if what you're trying to find is someone like a sound model or something of someone playing low, there is an etude book. I don't know if there are recordings. I would imagine. Oh, excuse me. I would imagine that on YouTube there would be recordings. I'm going to look real quick. I think it's low etudes for trumpet, Phil Snedeker. Yes. Okay. So if you put, in fact, I'm going to copy and paste a link that you can, if what you're trying to do is hear low trumpet playing that sounds good, this link will give you plenty of videos to find that. Gary says, mistakes are okay, it's how we learn. I just imagine throwing them into the trash bin as I pass them by while playing. But I love the concept of saying I need to make less mistakes. Is that right? Yeah, so we do make, we do want to improve our accuracy and stuff like that. So, I have you guys might have heard me talk about this before. I have this philosophy about what I call overlapping responsibilities. I believe that one responsibility should overlap the other so that what happens in that overlap is the best of whatever we can produce. And I came up with this overlap concept on a recording session that I was doing where the guy who wrote the music was in the booth and we were doing a recording session of his music. And I heard the guys in the section complain about the music the way it was written. They were making mistakes and they were blaming the guy who wrote the music for their mistakes. Then when we had a break, I went into the studio, into the booth to talk to the composer, and the composer was blaming them. On both accounts, both of these guys were wrong. The proper attitude of a performer or someone who's playing somebody's original music is that I will play whatever you put in front of me. That's my job. I will do the best that I can. If it doesn't happen, then that's my shortcoming, not the composer's shortcoming. The attitude of the composer should be that I should write this music in a way that's playable. See, I'm both of these. I'm a composer. I'm a professional trumpet player. I understand those two roles to be that way. When I write, my job as someone who writes the music is not primarily to express myself. The primary objective, the work that has to go into it is making that music accessible to the people who have to play it. So if someone comes to me and says this is not playable, then I've screwed up. That's on me as a composer. I hope that makes sense. So how does this apply to the mistakes thing? When we're in performance, we should not stress over mistakes. We shouldn't even care. I know that sounds sacrilegious. We should not even care about the mistakes at all. In our practice time, we should absolutely care. And that's the overlapping responsibility that I talk about. And I like this concept for all kinds of stuff. The overlapping responsibility is great for marriage. The husband's responsibility overlaps the wife's responsibility. They overlap each other. And when the husband stops blaming the wife and the wife stops blaming the husband, that's when the best stuff starts to happen. That's the same way with teaching lessons. When the student doesn't get it, it's not the student's fault from my perspective. I take that personally and I'm going to do what I can to help the student get it. For as long as the student doesn't get it, it's my responsibility to help the student make whatever accomplishments they want to make. On the other hand, it's not right for the student to say, hey, I had a student tell me this one time, you're not doing your job. Well, let me tell you, it's your job to do the learning, right? I have my job and you have your job, and those two things are supposed to overlap each other. When you have overlapping responsibilities, everything is better. Everything is better. And that's how I see this mistake stuff. When we're on stage, we don't care. It's not like caring is going to help on stage anyway. But when you're practicing, You should absolutely care. You should be very, very serious about whatever mistakes that come out. Um, but not that said, not to the point where it makes you stop the follow through. You take that mistake seriously, but you fix it outside of the context of stopping the music. Don't stop the music. Okay? Gary says, I heard John Williams say he overwrote Star Wars, yet I heard Maurice Murphy nailed the top C on the first recording session every time. Yeah. So, that's what I'm saying is when we live this overlap thing, it's extremely empowering. There's something that happens when you're not afraid to screw up. You end up screwing up a lot less. How ironic is that? When you're not afraid to make a mistake, you make fewer mistakes. Gabriel says, have you ever been so good with the lip buzzing? I don't understand what you're saying. Have I ever? I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. Maybe you can clarify what you're trying to say. My lip buzz goes up and down. I have some great days, I have some bad days. And I think it has to do with the texture of the lips. I had this really weird thing happen a couple weeks ago where the notes would just stop. I'd just be playing and duh, and it sounded like someone had plugged up the horn. And I was changing mouthpieces. I tried a different horn. Um, and finally I pulled a layer of dead skin off the bottom lip. And then everything went back to normal. There was a piece of skin hanging off my lip that was apparently coming loose and stopping the air from flowing through my lips. First thing I ever experienced anything like that before. And I think because I was playing loud when it happened, and something like that did happen at the beginning of the month in July, um, where the note was just stopping, and I was playing loud then too. And I think what it made me realize is I have to spend a little bit more time practicing loud because ever since COVID, I haven't been spending enough time on the gigs playing loud like I used to. And I think when you play loud, this is just my theory. Okay, I'm not actually teaching this to you. This is just something I'm working through in my head. When you play loud, I think what it does is it exfoliates your skin. When you play loud enough, the skin, the little particles come off of your lips. So anyway, if you want to clarify what you mean by that, have you ever been so good with the lip buzzing? So I'm not sure what you're asking. Any other questions? This was a good one. Except for that I'm kind of like, oh, Gabriel says, your lip buzz is very good. I was wondering if it comes natural or you had to work on it. When I first, um, when I, when I first, it's funny that Gary says this because this is exactly what happened to me. That when I was first introduced to lip buzzing, I did it like this. So no, I wasn't always as good at it. Um, and when I very first started doing it correctly, with the lips more tight to each other, I couldn't buzz more than one note. I could only just hold the one note. when I tried to change the note, I couldn't make it change. Of course, we're talking about 1985, and I've had all this time, almost 40 years, to perfect that. But no, it wasn't always like that. Gary says, I was so good at it, a duck thought I was calling. See, that's what I call what that sound that I originally made when I first started doing it was duck sounds, right? That's because I'm using a tuba embouchure or a trombone embouchure to play trumpet pitches. You have that curled out embouchure, and then you just try to push it together to get the notes. Right? That's not how we play trumpet. We play trumpet with a curled in embouchure. Okay? And so that's where that duck sound comes from, is not having the right angle of the lips. Karen says, how do you train your ear for lip and mouthpiece buzzing? I think going back and forth between what it sounds, like if you have a piano, the piano really helps. You play the note on the piano. You have to be able to transpose, like you got to know that E on the trumpet is a D on the piano. Alternatively, I think you can download an app you can click on the note and it'll play that note for you. But yes, it helps to go back and forth between the two, play it on the piano, now then buzz it. Play it on the piano, then buzz it. Back and forth between those. So Gabrielle says, what is the issue on changing pitch? So I'll come back to you, Gabrielle, because Karen just asked, just play it on the trumpet. No, we don't want to play it on the trumpet, not in the context of the routine. Because we don't want to get ahead of that. There's a reason why those exercises are in that order. And if we add the trumpet now, then you're not getting the full benefit of the order of those exercises. So that's why we don't do it on the trumpet. That's what I mean. Don't check the pitch on the trumpet. This is something from the very beginning, when I very first started teaching this in the 80s. That was one of the first things that came up. They wanted to check the pitch on the trumpet. We don't want to do that. Most of what we do is mental, not physical. There's physical manifestations, but it's mental. Everything that we play is 100% mental with physical manifestations. So just by adding the trumpet at that stage, you're changing mentally what happens by doing those exercises. So yeah, I might be making a too big of a deal of that, but this is how I've been teaching it all along. So we really want to find some way to check the pitch. What you could do is make a recording of yourself on the trumpet for tomorrow. Play the notes on a MP3, and then buzz what you just played. And then play the next one, and then buzz what you played. That's one way to get around that. All right, so Gabriel says, what is the issue on changing pitch? Airflow. So, changing pitch, I was just talking to a student. I had a student earlier today, and I was just talking to him about how subconscious all of this stuff is. A lot of trumpet teachers rightfully compare trumpet playing to whistling. And when we whistle, we don't have precise what's going up, what's going down, how many inches, how many millimeters. We don't do that. We use our ear, and the body just does what it has to do to get that whistle to come out. And the lip buzz is a lot like that. Now, generally speaking, I'm not against knowing how it works. Generally speaking, we curl the lips in for a higher note and we curl the notes out for a lower note. So if I do arpeggios, it makes it easier to see that, especially if I offset myself to the so you can see the contour. You see how the lips curl in for the higher notes and out for the lower notes? Okay. Now, notice also that the higher you go, the more subtle that change is. And that's why I have to do arpeggios for you to see it. Because if I'm doing a scale up there, you don't see as much movement because it's extremely subtle. Now, if I do scales going down, right, you're going to see more of a, that was, the top one was an octave, the bottom one was an octave. You're going to see a more pronounced change in the lower register. And when I say that most of playing trumpet is mental, that's the reason I'm saying it, because there's no way that you can consciously control that. There's no way. It has to be like whistling. And like I said, there is this general rolling in, rolling out that happens. But we don't control that consciously to make the notes come out. If you do too much of that, it stops the horn. If you do too little of it, just air comes out. So the balance of those two things, the air and the resistance, the balance between those is it's an extremely subtle balance. And if you go a little bit too much in one direction or the other, the whole thing just falls apart. So it has to be mental. And how do you make that work? You make that work by just spending time doing it. Now there is some stuff, I don't have time to go into this today. There are some things that will cause that time to not work that way. It has mostly to do with attitude. But the stuff that you do, if you spend time just lip buzzing, and by the way, because it is mental, the lip buzz should be slow. In fact, everything, the more slow you practice, the more benefit you get. And the reason for this is because of the mental aspects of what we do. The mental aspects dictate that the slower we go when we practice, the more we absorb from that practice session. So when you do like that lip buzz that I did in the very beginning, we want that to be as long as we can play it. We don't want to do this. I've had so many students do this, right? And then they're done. That's not good. Make it as long as you can. Gary says, I asked James Thompson in a masterclass he gave about his buzzing book what he says about people who don't believe in buzz. He said, "Who cares? People like Vizzuti are trumpet freaks, but I buzz." I had a teacher um, that was very upset that I was playing jazz. And when I gave him, because he told me that the reason I was playing, the reason I was not getting the sound that he wanted me to get was because I was playing jazz gigs. And I listed to him Alan Vizzuti, Wynton Marsalis, um, what's the guy in Kentucky, Vince DiMartino. I gave him a list of people who played jazz and classical. Another one that most people don't know about is Michael Philip Mossman, also plays classical and jazz. Um, there's so many people, and he said just what you said there. Um, they're freaks. They're freaks. You can't. Basically, when they say they're freaks, um, they're saying that you can't do that. You can't do what they do. That's what it means when someone says they're freaks. That guy that does what he does, they're freaks. I'm not absolute on the buzz stuff. I don't make every student buzz. If they have too much trouble with it, remember, so much of what we do is mental. And if a student is getting mental over the lip buzz because they can't do it, then it's better to not do it. The lip buzz can actually make you play worse because you're all wrapped up about why can't I do this? And I've seen a lot of people that the lip buzz can actually just destroy the whole learning process because they get so frustrated. And for students like that, it's not big enough of a deal to suffer through that. The benefits you get, yes, there's benefits, but those benefits are erased if in order to get those benefits you have so much anxiety in your playing. So yes, I don't make every student do the buzzing. And there's also a group of students that I won't teach that way either. If a student is not a muscular based embouchure, if the embouchure they have is more based on pounding the face, right? I call it an inflammation-based embouchure where you push so hard that the lips swell up. Those students shouldn't be doing any of the muscular stuff. Unless they want to change embouchures, those students shouldn't be doing pedal tones. Those students shouldn't be doing lip slurs. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry. Lip bends. What am I saying? Lip buzz. I'm sorry. Oh, my head is not where it needs to be today. Lip buzz, pedal tones. These guys shouldn't be playing that stuff because that stuff messes with the swelling. And the whole point of practicing, if you play on that kind of swelling, is to normalize the swelling. How do I know so much about this? I used to play that way. I used to play like that. So playing on a muscular embouchure, you can do all those other exercises and it works. If you um, if you don't play on a muscular embouchure and you have no intention of changing your embouchure, in our lessons, I won't make you do any of that stuff. We will probably do mouthpiece buzz because that got pressure on the lips. No pedal tones, no lip buzz, probably not lip bends. I'm not. It depends on the player, but probably not lip bends. Because lip bends, what lip bends are to a inflammation-based embouchure person, it's not the same thing as what it is for a muscular embouchure. The lip bends would have a different role. So yes, there's a bunch of stuff that we would not do with inflammation-based embouchure. Now, that said, it's been a while since I've had a student with that kind of embouchure, fortunately. So that's good because that's a hard way to play. That's a hard life. You know the rule about you have to practice every day? I'm convinced that that rule came about because of the inflammation-based embouchure. If someone has an inflammation embouchure and they take 2 days off, all the inflammation is gone. And their range is gone, their endurance is gone. Gary says, thanks so much, Eddie. Have a great weekend, sir. You are awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess I should wrap it up. It's nice to see you guys. Hey, if you want to get announcements about the Q&A, click on the link, add yourself to the WhatsApp group, and I will let you know a few days before. If there's not going to be a Q&A, I'll let you know that too. All right. Gabriel says, thanks for your great help, Eddie. Have a nice weekend. And bye, all friends. Goodbye, all friends. Okay. All right, guys. God bless you. Thank you for hanging out. And we will see you next time. Thank you.